Hey, welcome. On today's show, DeepSeek's AI skyrocketed to the #1 position in the App Store in just 3 days. And it's a feat, really, honestly, that a lot of people are wondering, what does this mean for the future of AI? Is this a sign of a shifting AI landscape or just a momentary trend? Is it going to lead to more advancements in open AI and open source models? What does it mean for data privacy? That's been up in the news a lot. What will be the response from Western AI companies after what's happened with DeepSeek? So today's conversation is all about DeepSeek, but more than that, more than just what they did and what they released. How does this impact everybody else? Are we at an inflection point? It's really the whole conversation about what's next. What's next after this? So this is the Daily AI Show. Today is January 30th, 2025. I'm Brian, and I'm joined by Beth and Andy. And yeah, we're going to try to take about the next 40 minutes. Let's be honest, 45 minutes, and try to dive into this a little bit more. We're going to delve deeply into this topic of DeepSeek. It would almost be a tongue twister. Delve deeply into DeepSeek's dissonant. I don't know.
I think before AI, very few people ever used the word delve, and now it's almost impossible to avoid it in your normal discourse.
Funny enough, Andy, I was reading a prominent news resource. In fact, I want to say it was BBC News. Not only did they use delve was the title in the H1 heading of a certain section of that article. And I was like, oh man, they're like, let's delve deeper into it. And unfortunately, it was about it's a live show. It was unfortunately about the military helicopter and American Airlines crash that happened in DC and how tragic that's been and the search rescues. Anyway, it was an article about that I was reading this morning, but let's delve deeper into this. And it was like big, bold letters. I was like, man, you're really going for it. Maybe the British use delve more than the Americans do. I'm not sure. Yeah. So anyway, not what our topic is today. But we've been talking about this, behind the scenes, right, guys? I mean, we've been sort of on the show, obviously, but outside of the show as well. And I'll be honest, I'll throw this out there. I'm curious to hear what you guys say, because when we thought about this topic and we're like, oh, we should talk about this, I was like, man, another show about DeepSeek. But that's just me thinking that way, because I feel like it's just been consuming the news, and I feel like, oh my God, everybody's talking about it. Of course, we're sort of in this AI bubble, and not everybody might be talking about it, but it is interesting, despite what we've all talked, I think, at this point, where we sort of fall on our personal opinions of it. But what's more interesting to me, and hopefully what we can get in today, is like, well, okay, hold on, it happened. So now what does this mean for the next model? Maybe it's Chinese, maybe it's Taiwanese, maybe it's out of Australia, out of left field or something like that. Somebody else comes up with a model like this. Does it change the way that OpenAI, the way that these Western AI companies are going to move and operate in the future? Is it a great thing for open source? And what does it say when 3 million or something like that, Beth, people download an app over 3 days without really knowing anything about it other than the word DeepSeek? Like, what does that mean? So anyway, off to you guys with this. That's where my brain goes. It's like, it's sort of a heady thing,
So it was 1 million downloads on last Friday, and was 2.6 million this Monday. So it was 1.6 extra. Apple's App Store does its leaders in an interesting way. So it's not just if you're #1 in the App Store, it does not mean the most people have downloaded your app, because it also chooses apps that are being installed. So not just download, but actually installed. So it is likely that these people did download it and installed it. And 80% of DeepSeek's users joined in that time period. So it really exponentially increased their reach, basically. So one of the things that we were talking about was, so is this a sign of broader adoption? Right. Do we know who downloaded it and adopted it? Were they already AI users? Did they already have ChatGPT or Claude or some other thing, AI tool that they have that they've downloaded and are using, and we don't have information about that. That's not something that Apple has released or that we can find. But it is interesting. Even if we don't know how many of those people downloaded it, we do know that it broke out of the AI bubble, and that
At
other
least
people
it seems to,
right?
Yeah. So to put the numbers in context, you're talking about maybe cumulatively 10 or let's say 50 million downloads. Many downloads that I do on the iPhone, I download it, I open the app, I close it, and I forget about it because I'm already habitually in a pattern of using other apps. And the habitual pattern right now in AI is a reputedly 300 million users of ChatGPT, right? So is there a displacement of ChatGPT by DeepSeek? I don't think that's really happening, given that there are only 2.5 million downloads on Monday. Maybe, again, it's accumulated to tens of millions of people who have downloaded. Maybe the active user numbers is a tiny fraction of the 300 million active users of ChatGPT.
Yeah. And I mean, Greg just pulled up a good comment. By the way, Karl joined us, but Greg pulled up a good comment and said, and doesn't China have subscription farms? Yeah, I mean, I'm sure they exist other places too. I'm not calling out China on this, but I have definitely seen the videos of walls of cell phones that are all acting as, people, right? And actively doing it. I'm not suggesting that that's a larger or a smaller portion. I think, Beth, we don't know, and we have to say, well, still it's a significant number. But then, yeah, it goes back to the question of like, here's my question. Why? What is it? Curiosity? Because that would make more sense for the AI bubble people, us, right? Curiosity. There's a new model. I want to try it. This is probably the first one I haven't downloaded, frankly, just because I was more concerned with the security side of it. But I would definitely use it through Perplexity. I mean, Perplexity just came out and said, hey, it's available. You can do it, and it's on US servers and yada, yada. So it's not the model itself. You can access the model.
I think it's the first reasoning model that's available in a free download.
So the question go back to you. Does that mean people generally know what a reasoning model is? My experience, no. No, they definitely don't know what a thinking or chain of thought or any of that is. They just know ChatGPT.
And that points to one of the great benefits of the emergence of DeepSeek and all of the incredible media attention, the impacts on our evaluation and analysis of the value of companies in the landscape of AI, whether chip makers like NVIDIA, there's a lot of thinking going on by humans now that's drawing attention to a number of things. One is the space race that's underway here for AI between China and the United States, and the global geopolitical implications of domination of one country over others in an achievement of artificial general intelligence. That's one subject. The other one is, how do models actually get built and how are they trained? And what were the advances that made DeepSeek important to people who've been following AI? And I think that's bringing a lot of good attention to what's going on here. And I want to jump into the conversation by saying that DeepSeek really, really arrived at what I call parity with the major frontier models. There's only one model out there that it really didn't beat, with very few exceptions, and that's Anthropic's Claude 3.5 Sonnet. On almost every benchmark that you see on the graphics that compare DeepSeek to O1 and others, Claude, even though it's not a thinking, reasoning, chain of thought, trained model, it performed better in most of the important benchmarks, just barely better, but it was still better. And so I want to say what Dario Amodei, the thought leader and the CEO and founder of Anthropic, which builds Claude, says about DeepSeek. And he just came out today with a post basically about that. He said that DeepSeek is not a model out of nowhere breakthrough. It more or less fits on his expected trend of AI becoming cheaper and more capable. And that's really what they did, was they made something free because of their low costs. And now they're spending a lot of money. The Chinese are spending a lot of money to support the inference costs. That is, the server farms that have to run all the queries that are being generated by the mobile apps that are being downloaded. Okay. So the US, he says, has historically, led improvements. So this time it's a Chinese company that developed some incredible technical tricks, he calls them, that achieve this parity in general. But it's really for an individual project that's gotten cheaper through those tricks. And typically what happens then is a company invests the savings that are available by reducing the training cost and the inference costs, because the inference costs for DeepSeek are lower than they are for others because of the efficiencies that have been built into that model. And then they turn around and use those savings to what? Invest in the millions of chips and the huge dollar investments that are necessary to make real advances in the capabilities of the model. Remember now that DeepSeek's just managed on a very low budget to get to the level of O1 and Claude. It's not gone way past those.
Right.
You know what I haven't seen is it going up against O1 Pro, because I want to see that.
We haven't seen that.
On top of that. And then I think we're going to be seeing O3 Mini today, which everything's moving up. So it'd be curious to see how fast things are moving and how fast because I think the scuttlebutt is what O3 Mini, Grok 3. Zuckerberg came out and say in the next couple months, Llama 4, right? Everything's going to be accelerated. So, and then today, I think Kevin Weil and Sam Altman are at the White House explaining the new whatever they have, something pretty big that they're going to release in Q1. So, and Sam did say he's going to up the timeline. So I think any type of benchmark, they have to come up with new benchmarks, because those benchmarks will all see 100 in 4 months. They'll be everything's blown past every single piece. So, and then we haven't seen what's come out of Anthropic yet. We haven't seen anything coming out of Anthropic for a while. So, and they like to drop something, substantial once they're pretty thorough in that. So I'm curious I just want to go back to the comment of reasoning. So since DeepSeek was launched, 1, 2, 3, 4, I did about 5 prospect presentations to 5 different companies. Not one. Everyone knew what DeepSeek was. Some of them didn't. Some of them what is that? We've heard about it. But we asked them, have you downloaded? No. Do you know what reasoning is? No. And then that's when we go into our presentation. So I think when you have ChatGPT free and you're using 4.0 and then you try DeepSeek, an O1 model for free, it's a completely different experience, especially how it shows you how it thinks versus O1, which gives you a summary. O1 Pro shows you how it thinks, it actually has that bar with it, but O1 doesn't. So it's interesting, but I'm curious to see what O3 Mini will do, and then eventually what O3, O4, and whatever agents that they're even coming out with. All I know is, to me, operator is there's a guy I follow on TikTok, and I think Beth, you follow him as well. He was thinking that everything's going to be copied as fast as they can to get a little bit of that market share from OpenAI, whether it's operator. So those who don't have operator, if they try DeepSeek, it's free. It's oh my goodness, this is insane. Because whenever I showed the demo of operator, it that is the most mind-blowing thing for most people. And then every single feature, video, voice, advanced voice mode, how many people actually have experienced the fun of advanced voice mode with vision? Not very many people either. So to have that's the expectation. Be interesting to see if they can do that and how quickly they can do that. Because if I was the DeepSeek team, that would be the play, is try to get as much stuff out as possible while the spotlight's on you. The whole self-bait thing, right?
They had their model for the images, right? That came out I mean, DeepSeek came out, I don't know if it was V2, V3, whatever. It was Christmas Day. Then the R1. Then also we do images, right? It is pretty rapid fire from them. Here's what you guys are saying makes me wonder this. Like, okay, if we were able to just do a good poll to the general public, call that what you will, right? Not the folks that, not Cisco, not Judy, and everybody in our comments, and Greg and all that. Just a poll, and said, hey, were you aware that ChatGPT, when you use ChatGPT, you used to have to use a different model to get images or to do code interpretation or to upload a document, code interpreter or data analysis, whatever they changed the name to, and then it didn't stick. And I would imagine most people go, here's what I know about ChatGPT. I can show it an image. I can create an image. I think it's pretty good. I've heard it's pretty good at code. I haven't really messed around with that. I've done this. It seems to be pretty good at math. It's gotten better at that. I kind of like that it gives me, citations. That makes me feel good or whatever. That's the understanding of it. Now, Sam Altman has said in time, he hopes that the O1 models would merge into the ChatGPT models, that you would know no different. And when you think about that, you go, yeah, why wouldn't you? You would always have the option, and you would hope that the model would say, this seems like it's a more of an O3 answer. And so I'm just going to, like it would open canvas. I think I'm just going to go ahead and use the deeper reasoning model for this answer. Unless you tell me not to, user, I'm going to it seems like you need the better, longer thinking answer. In time, does the general user care or know? And so maybe this whole DeepSeek thing with maybe if they are getting access to R1 and they're playing around with it and seeing those answers, if you haven't seen something like that before, it would feel like a very large leap in the abilities of a chat bot. That like, oh God, it sounds like it's talking to me. It sounds like it is a person. It's saying like, Ethan Mollick talks about this all the time. Like the way it's programmed to speak is very human-like, and it catches a lot of people off guard because it has that sort of AGI feel to it. Like, oh, is it sentient? Is it thinking? Or well, no, it's the model and how it was trained, but it has a very human-like thing. And I almost wonder if that's caught people too. Like that's caught people's attention with DeepSeek.
Well, if you think about it, I've talked to so many people who have ChatGPT Plus who haven't even used O1, haven't seen all the models. They just go into it. Oh, I pay for it. Blah blah blah. I was like,
start using it.
Have you used actually task projects?
No.
All Canvas.
GPTs?
No. Right?
No, it's like smarter Google. Right?
Yes.
It's like slightly smarter Google.
Yeah.
And while that's Google could also have been smarter Google had they done it correctly. But yes, and I think that's Perplexity too. You just go in and you ask for something.
Did you all know? I bet you very, very few people know you can actually access O1 for free on Microsoft Copilot. Like the free Copilot, not 365.
No, I didn't know that.
So yeah, so Mustafa Salman put it out on X. No one knows about it. The only reason I saw it is the guy Tibor, who we all follow to get the latest, because he seems to have all the behind the scenes access on the web app does. So if you go to Copilot, it's there. It's called Think Mode, and it's a pain in the ass to get to. Typical Microsoft, right? So you go to Copilot, you're like, what the? And then you have to type out. So if you go to Copilot, you have to type it out. I don't know if it's just on the phone or you have to sign in. So you have to sign in, you have to type it out. And it only activates if you start typing in something, because there's a little toggle there that'll be like, oh, think. And I was like, why would you make it harder to access that? Like
and Microsoft says, have you met me?
Or some weird. I was like, why? Like that is the dumbest. And then no one knows about it, obviously. So I was like, oh. But DeepSeek does a better job of Microsoft. Like everybody can access O1 for free through Microsoft Copilot. But my comment is, who the hell uses Copilot?
You're getting things in the chat. I also want to put Brian. So Cisco has a comment because they actually have downloaded on their M1 Mac Mini, and Cisco's inside Cisco, I'm assuming you're inside the bubble because you're here a lot, and we are delighted at what you say. And so it doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be someone outside the bubble. Even inside the bubble, we're seeing and hearing people are really excited about what about the differences that it does. And when you go back to ChatGPT, it's like, oh, you're not quite as good at this particular flavor, right? But ChatGPT still has all the tools.
Yeah. And it's not, we have Copilot 365 for the business side, but like it's not even there. So it's free. And if you go to the app, which I'm like, how many people have downloaded this thing? It's there too. So I was like, oh, I'll play with that. Not really. I don't think I'll play with that. Like, I was like, what? When would you? I guess you could have used it, but I don't know. It was kind of funny. I just want to point that out if anyone wants to try it.
Yeah,
so I want to go ahead, Brian.
No, I was just on that point. Like I don't know if it was before you joined, Karl, but I was saying that Perplexity has it available, for the R1 model and stuff. Now that is, I'm just looking at it because I wasn't sure myself, but it's not available.
I'm going to share my screen and show that.
Oh, perfect. Good. Yeah.
Yeah. Let me just bring that up for you here.
I tried the Copilot too. It is definitely not before you sign in. I just didn't go far enough to sign in, Karl. So I'm curious to get the answer on that for you, though.
Okay. So what's nice about Perplexity is if you have the pro account, and this is one of the things that's $20 a month, and it's well worthwhile.
Yeah.
Over here now on the pro search, you've got a drop down. And when I click that drop down, it gives me both reasoning with R1 as an option and reasoning with O1 as an option. So you can actually do side-by-side comparisons, not like Canvas side-by-side, but run a query and use reasoning with R1. And by the way, notice that it says on there, hosted in the US, running on their server. So you're not sending your information to China.
Exactly.
Which was, I think, brilliant. And by the way, Hugging Face also put forward their version of R1 running on US servers. So you can play with DeepSeek. And what I did is, okay, I'm not going to run this search, but I think this is really what we're talking about right now is, are there any real significant advantages to choosing DeepSeek over OpenAI or whatever? If you're already paying for Perplexity or you're already paying for ChatGPT for all of the tooling that it offers, like projects, and we run through a list of all the things that go beyond just the chat-based model that OpenAI has built in order to provide application functionality to their user base. That DeepSeek has not caught up with that yet. It's now still just an LLM that can do chat and some vision responses if you choose a different model. You can input visuals in effect for it. But what I did with this was yesterday evening, I ran a search here using DeepSeek, asking it to research the extensive commentary about DeepSeek that's among all these different sources on the web. Now that's leveraging Perplexity's search and then bringing all of those resources in and then giving it to DeepSeek R1. And DeepSeek created a very reasonable, but to me, not substantially different result from what, even the Sonar Huge model that Perplexity offers does. But it was interesting to have DeepSeek evaluating the impact of DeepSeek on the marketplace and coming to this conclusion. It represents a paradigm shift in AI development, proving that frontier model performance can be achieved through software ingenuity rather than exorbitant compute budgets. But that's actually a false claim in my view, because the exorbitant compute budgets had to pre-exist DeepSeek's technical accomplishment of matching that by using large models that had been trained on large compute in order to distill that down into ones that can reason. The major advance here is that it uses the chain of thought reasoning prefix to their response. It makes it go through a whole series of steps, and it shows you what those thinking steps are. And it does that very, very effectively. And they built that matching what O1's reasoning capabilities are, but not O3's, and doing that on a very small budget.
So I want to talk a little bit about the compute budget or the inference budget, which is the compute budget, because there are two pieces there. One is the chips that they're using, right? Are they using H100s? Are they using the thing before H100s? Are they using the latest? But the second piece of that is energy costs. And energy costs is a place where China has done huge advancements and huge investments. So they are already more reliant on nuclear energy. They can spin up their nuclear power plants faster, right? If you look at the US, it says, well, all right, well, you might be able to spin it up in about I think it was 6 years, 4 to 6 years. And China has a huge advantage there because they've been doing it. So they've already found efficiencies that we were not doing because we were not trying to create more energy in that way from that source. So I think that they have that they're part of this is their innovation in efficiency in the model, but there is also efficiency in the energy source. And as we know, we don't know what their because we're not sharing chip architecture between our countries. We do not know what their innovations have been in that context.
So while you're still sharing my screen, I think you are, I just wanted to show you the second query sort of investigation that I was doing, which is, okay, they've built the model. Now, if you want to take that open source model and you want to run it, how many GPUs are really necessary to provide that service to you in the enterprise? And that as a model for just how large the scaling problem is when you have to run it for 300 million simultaneous users, eventually. So what I gathered from this investigation is that if you want to run DeepSeek R1 in an enterprise and you want to run it, on an NVIDIA cluster, it's going to require, if you're using floating point 16, which is more than DeepSeek uses. They used 8 for their training. And that's just the level of precision in the floating point calculations that they do, which takes compute time, but doesn't really necessarily get you to a better answer because that's false precision in a sense. So there's some arguments that you should go down to 4-bit, okay? But what DeepSeek did in their training was they used 8-bit rather than 16, which is what's normally used when people are doing the training of these frontier models. But I wanted to just show you this down here to support, 11 users, just 11 users. This cluster of 80 gigabytes, 16 NVIDIA A100s with 80 gigabytes, that costs about $150,000. So it's $150,000 of compute that you have to build into your enterprise if you're going to run your own cluster just to support 11 users. Let's say you have 10,000 users around the world. That's a lot of chips that have to be bought in order to provide simultaneous service using DeepSeek, even as efficient as it is. And I wanted to do that just as a sort of a litmus test of, does this really make inference cost go down dramatically? Yes, it does, but it's still damned expensive.
Well, yeah, and I think that's why yesterday you saw ChatGPT or GPT Gov or whatever that was, right? To ensure it's like, hey, we've got the security, you've got government now being able to use this. And even from an enterprise level, how many enterprises would use this? Like from a cheap cost, yes, there would be some, but like even the connotation of this from in North America would be pretty significant. Like if you were to use this, it would have to be a custom build and you would have to use multiple, like your team would have to know essentially how to run this. I think that's a very difficult endeavor, especially for IT teams, when they talk about security and whatnot, you've got to have a really in-depth knowledge of what you're doing. Even running Llama, open source Llama to do this, I haven't met very many IT teams that would want to do this. So I'm curious if anybody out in our audience actually runs an open source model for an enterprise, and how often that happens. Because yes, you could, but whether you like DeepSeek or what any other model you like, I haven't met very many who actually run it versus either going with Microsoft Azure, Google, or kind of, yeah, really those are the two big ones that, just from a privacy and security perspective, or Amazon, one of those three are the ones I usually hear about. I haven't heard very many teams go off. And now you could run DeepSeek in Azure, which I think they announced yesterday too. So there is that possibility. I don't know if Bedrock is going to enable that as well. So
yeah, I just want to reiterate that point that, having a cluster of 16 A100s, that's, when that gets delivered to your, loading dock, that is just the beginning of the expenses associated with trying to manage operations of an LLM op, right? There's a lot of other components to that, software and hardware and people, to manage that process.
I'd like to share, if you don't mind, Beth, I'd like to share my screen here in a second, because Andy, as you were showing your example in Perplexity, and truthfully, before not stop video share, that makes more sense. I pulled it up now, Beth. Sorry, I hadn't given a whole lot of thought to the Perplexity side of making R1. And I knew O1 was available to it. But this is where I think the biggest difference is to this. Look at what Perplexity is capable of doing in under a minute. Now, whether you use O1 or R1, you'd have to look. I ran it on both of them, so I can share both. In fact, I think I'm on the wrong one for this. Is actually the R1 version of it. So first and foremost, I've told you guys this before on the show. If you want something that will test the limits, or not the limits, test a good thinking model, use one of the conundrums from the newsletter, because a conundrum by definition does not have an easy answer, right? It's easy. You're capable of having opinions on both sides of it. So I gave it one from one of our older newsletters called the AI Emotional Intelligence Paradox. And this is the conundrum. There's a little bit of a beginning at the top, but if AI becomes adept at understanding and influencing emotions, should we celebrate it as a breakthrough in human AI relationships that enhances connections and care? Or does this power risk reducing emotional autonomy, turning feelings into tools for profit, or control in ways we may not fully understand? That's the conundrum, right? And we could have a whole show discussing that. And all I asked it to do, Perplexity that is, I said, I'd like to get your thought on both sides of this conundrum. Convince me of both sides. So I'm really, really putting, it a task here to try to break this down. Here's what I want to bring up though. Before there is any R1 movement here, Perplexity does what Perplexity does so well, which is it goes out and gets a whole bunch of different cited sources that might be relevant to this conundrum. Then it feeds those sources and information into the R1 model and response. That is drastically different and much, much more powerful, in my opinion. Not just R1, you could use O1 too, to do it through Perplexity than actually using it through the own tools. Because you don't get this. You don't get O1 and go say, do deep research and come back with 20 citations, then think through the process. And we can actually see it here. We've got the pro search, first exploring the benefits of emotional intelligence, and we've got hyperspace and a couple other 6 more here. Then we had more citations here about examining the ethical risk of AI emotional intelligence. And then we had a few more about analyzing both sides of the emotional intelligence paradox to provide a balanced perspective before R1 took over, or O1 in the other example. So now it's beginning the analysis, and let's tackle this. Now let's go through the risks. I should structure an answer with 2 main sections, right? All the thinking that we always say is almost as valuable as the answer yourself, because you can just see how the model is thinking. And then when we get down here, we get a traditional Perplexity answer. The difference is, though, these citations as part of the R1 thinking answer. And it's the same if we go over to, this is O1 now, that looks very similar from what you're looking on the screen. The same idea, though, that, you know, it's citing source number 29 as part of the bullet point answer, as part of one side of this conundrum. That is massively powerful. And I hope that people are able to see just how powerful that is to use in business today, because you guys know I work in sales, and people are always trying to better understand their competitors. They're trying to better understand their prospects, their clients, like whether they're a current client, whether they want them to be a client, and then you have competitor analysis. Just take those 3 buckets right there. Now think how you could use Perplexity, leveraging the power of a deep thinking model like R1 or O1, which you have direct access to if you have the Pro, the paid side of Perplexity, to get deeper analysis of, like, competitor analysis would be instantly better because of this. Prospecting and getting deeper levels of it. This is better in Perplexity than the models themselves. Truly, truly. And it didn't even occur to me that it was layering. It was Perplexity was putting their research as the system prompt above the R1 or O1 model. And that is a game changer for me. So here's what I'll say about Perplexity. My arc of Perplexity was, I was like, I don't get it. That Andy convinced me I needed it. To, I would say, like a month ago, I paid for a full annual subscription of Perplexity. That's only the second AI tool that I have agreed to pay for a full annual subscription, because you usually save money off of it, because I was so convinced that I wouldn't stop using Perplexity in the next 12 months of my life. I've done that with Canva, which you can call that an AI tool if you want or not. Canva, I've re-upped twice now for a full annual subscription, and I just did it again for Perplexity. So for me, what they're doing is just at a different level. Really, really cool.
So Gareth Hood wondered, have you tried Google Deep Research or Google Thinking? And I know you're really excited about it. Maybe
Yes.
that's something that that can, if you choose to do it, Brian, be mentioned in the newsletter this weekend. If you compare that to, I don't know.
I don't think, I mean, at least when I've used Google Deep Research, you don't get the citations. But to be fair, you don't get that in O1 or R1 either. I think they've told us that deep searching will come to the O1, O3. Maybe O3 will have it. I don't know. But at least in my use cases, I have not seen this level of research that is then rolled into a thinking model. You're getting a 2 for 1.
Google has 2 different things. One is Deep Research. It does give the citations, but it may not be the same as a reasoning model. It may just be pure research. And then writing that, I don't remember which show. We did a show on it. But deep thinking is what you've been talking about recently, which is the thinking model. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. It's the 2.0 Flash experimental thinking 1.21, right? The deep thinking one, I would imagine, Beth, and I might be wrong, but my guess is that it's akin to Pro Search by Perplexity.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
That would be my guess.
Yeah. I think so. What are we learning? What are we deciding about whether DeepSeek has changed the game in some ways? I believe that one of the things that's happened is was a little bit of an own goal maybe for OpenAI to complain visibly, audibly, out loud for everyone to see that DeepSeek trained on OpenAI data. And there have just been a ton of things like, didn't you train on our data? Like, it may be made better with OpenAI, so DeepSeek had a leg up, but none of us were asked. None of the people were asked when OpenAI started training on data, again, because they didn't really think it was going to work. So what were you asking people's permission for? But there has been a hard, right there. Now we're having the conversation. How do you move forward with this? That actually, I think, has started that conversation again. right? Because OpenAI complained about it. And because DeepSeek is either vague or explicit that they're going to keep all your data, regardless of whether you like close your account, get rid of things, those kinds of things.
What's that saying, Beth? Like I'm paraphrasing, but there's no such thing as bad publicity. Perplexity. Perplexity. That's a new word. Publicity. I kind of feel that way for Google, Anthropic, OpenAI. DeepSeek is probably the best thing that could have happened because it thrust this conversation into the spotlight. And maybe you come down on the side of saying DeepSeek is the best thing I've ever used, or not. But you know what it does? It just puts it right back into the news cycle and reignites the conversations about the need for better security and governance, which is great for OpenAI. We know they announced about OpenAI government. It actually flows well into what Stargate was about and having US-based servers and the whole thing, right? So like, I kind of feel like there's no bad publicity here. It's so hard to say that. Publicity this week, because everybody is talking, and like you said, Beth, it's burst through the bubble. That's kind of good for everybody. This is to me, this is a tide rises all boats type situation. I don't think anybody really comes out looking bad here. And it could be a boon for maybe some companies that are in the shadows today who are looking at what DeepSeek was able to accomplish and thinking, ooh, maybe we do need to push a little bit harder and release our own app, because there appears to be an appetite for things like this. And so how many companies maybe weren't thinking they needed to go that route or weren't going to invest in it? And now DeepSeek has proven that there is a path for apps that aren't ChatGPT to do 3 million downloads in 3 days or whatever it was.
Right.
You know?
So Gareth Hood has got your back. There's no such thing as bad perplexity. But the other thing is the success of DeepSeek again has brought us back to foundations. ChatGPT was successful not because it was massively new technology, but because it was a massively new interface that made the existing technology easier to access. This has made existing, or it's not existing, but this has been an interface update, right? I can do it on my phone, and therefore that's why everybody's excited about it. Also, the free thing. I mean, free has its own viral, timeline.
Yeah, agreed.
Okay.
Yeah. Any last thoughts, Andy, before we wrap it?
I'll just say that I believe that if you're a plus user of ChatGPT, even on the mobile app, you can access O1, right? So in that respect, DeepSeek being downloaded doesn't present any new reasoning capability that's available on the phone that wasn't already pre-existent with ChatGPT. And in general, I would say that OpenAI's O1, which is their former model, we're getting O3 mini here in the next few days, and O3 is a major step forward from what O1 is. We're going to see, and stay tuned, because we're going to see and try to compare what O3 is in its smallest version, distilled down to make it inexpensive to deliver to you, right? But still possessed of new capabilities in reasoning. We'll see if it actually moves the needle for us as users compared to DeepSeek. And of course, DeepSeek will be chasing that. But what's really exciting is, as was demonstrated by Brian in the reasoning steps that you can observe in Perplexity's implementation, based on lots of information collected by the Perplexity Pro Search, that those reasoning steps are what's new and important, because they are the prerequisite to agents. Agents have to perform reasoning in order to take a simple task objective and then break that down into the multiple steps and consider all the facets of effort to be undertaken. So really exciting developments. Reasoning's now with us. Agents are with us already, being applied in code and elsewhere, and they're going to be general purpose agents here within months.
Oh, yeah, maybe not months. And Karl's back. I wanted to ask, because we're talking about this. You said we may get O3 Mini today, and who is we? Because you are the we who has OpenAI Pro, ChatGPT Pro. Are we?
Everybody gets it. We're talking not just Plus users. From what the last thing I heard was that O3 Mini comes to everybody. Everybody gets it.
Sam said that.
Yeah.
Just with severely limited use. I don't know how many times you've used it on the free, maybe once a day or something. But yeah, he did mention that.
Once a day.
I mean,
the worst thing ever.
Free is free, you know. Here's what I'd say to that too is like, figure out what your benchmark post is. If you need some suggestions, yes, I've mentioned that the conundrums, but you know who you can go to is Ethan Malik. Go to his LinkedIn post. I always feel like when I read his prompts on how he's using and taxing the thinking models, maybe because he's a professor, because he's just a very smart man. Like, I always think like, oh man, I wish I had thought of that, you know? And so I would tell people, just my opinion, like if you're not sure what to test, if let's say O3 Mini drops today and you're like, well, how do I know that is better than O1? Everybody's going to tell me it is or whatever. My advice would be to maybe try the conundrum, because you might be able to see something there, but also go to Ethan Malik's LinkedIn page and just go back through his previous posts. He has quite a few of these in there where he's asked it to think deeply about this or that. And I think those would be pretty good testing grounds. If you're not sure and you're just curious, that would be maybe one of the first places I would go and see what you get out of it. I think that's what I'll do, honestly, because I always think with these new reasoning models, like, how would I know it's better, you know? And it really does come down to the quality of the prompt, like anything else. So you really have to have a good benchmark prompt in order to figure out whether it is in fact giving you better answers.
Or you know, another thing that you could do is you could ask GPT-4o. I did this for a prospect, is come up with a scenario for this industry, like essentially read O1, like do a web review, analyze it, and give me a complex scenario for this industry. Whatever that is, it'll give you a complex, and then you can, you know, take it to O1. I took it to O1 Pro, then you could take it to O3 Mini. Now, the question I had is, this is where I'm confused. Is O3 Mini supposed to be better than O1? Or is O1 supposed to be better? Yes.
Yes. That's what I heard. Yeah.
That's what I heard too. So I was like, okay, it's supposed to be better. How much better? I'm not sure. Like there's a bunch of charts. So I was like, on what benchmark? I'm sure we're gonna get more benchmarks today showing whatever that is. So I'm curious to see what that means. But yeah, here's the thing that someone told me yesterday when I was doing the presentation. I showed some of the benchmarks, and the person's like, okay, those are cool benchmarks, math, science, but we don't do math, science here. How can I take advantage of it for our company? And it was an engineering company. And the one thing I thought, and they did a lot of like CAD drawings and review of, they had to do distillation, like they had to look at a drawing and then put it to another system and it would analyze it. And I'm like, I'm curious to know, if you took that process and just did it in O1, what exactly would happen? Because
I have some information about that, by the way.
Sure.
So I had Perplexity running in the background. The question, you know, what are the real world impacts of choosing DeepSeek R1 versus OpenAI O1? And one of the things that was specifically mentioned about the advantages of OpenAI is advanced image analysis, like engineering schematics. And that's something that DeepSeek R1, apparently, based on the research that Perplexity did, isn't quite so good at. So O1 would be superior for your client's use of its vision capabilities and image analysis of schematics that they have in their documentation. The other two things were, you know, if you're going to be doing PhD level STEM problems or competitive programming, O1 is superior to DeepSeek. And regulatory compliance is a big issue because, you know, OpenAI O1 has enterprise grade safety protocols with government vetted security, and that's not going to be available in DeepSeek from China.
Okay, so I don't know if any of you went to your ChatGPT. They've updated the kind of the UI a bit, where you have like the little light bulb now to use more intelligence. So O1 think. If I'm using O1 and I press think, does that give me even more intelligence? I'm confused by that. I was like, okay. But I think what a lot of people haven't done too is you can use O1 with Canvas now. It used to you can't. You still can't do it with the O1 Pro, which doesn't make any sense to me. But you can literally do the exact same thing you would do in, say, a Lovable or Bolt. I don't know if you've tried it, Andy, yet. I've tried it. I went Lovable and Bolt with the same concept. It was pretty good. Now, O1 had to take a little bit more time, and it required you to confirm a couple things, while Lovable just builds it. So, but it is.
And how does O1 output code base and database and all of that? It just gives you the specifications for it.
It actually builds. So if you use Canvas, it builds the actual thing for you. So
it runs it in the Canvas.
Yeah. So why don't we? If you
it has user authentication in Canvas. Well, I don't understand how you build a full-fledged app in O1, but Lovable and Bolt can do that, right? But you then have to deploy it and make it accessible on the web.
You can preview it. That's right. So for example, here O1, I put the Canvas in. So here's the new think. Here's the tools. You can use Canvas with it. And I just put this, right? This is the example I use. Create an interactive app, blah, blah, blah. Here's a bunch of stuff that it needs to have it. And so I put it there. And I know if I go to Lovable, I put the same thing, it'll just run it.
Yeah, well, just last night I had Replit generate a detailed product requirements document based on the code and the UI that it had developed for the guided learning application. Because I'm going to take that over to Lovable and plug it into Lovable and see what Lovable produces.
So kind of now Lovable is a lot faster, but I haven't actually so I was listening to I don't know if you listened to the Next Wave podcast with Matt Wolf and Nathan Lands, but they were explaining how one of the use cases you should be using O1 Pro or O1 really is if you have a new product in your company and you want to build it, use O1 Pro or O1 as they recommended O1 Pro because apparently it's a little bit better than O1, but to give a concept, work out all the features. Don't worry about the UI at the front end because it's not very good at that, but work out to make sure it kind of works. Then either take the code to Cursor and finish it yourself or take it to a dev and have them finish it. So I think that's not a bad. So versus here, right? The exact same prompt. You've got Lovable essentially providing that it's kind of workable already. Versus
we're watching O1 still.
Okay. Yeah. How do I share?
And O1's generating a lot of code, but it's not yet gotten to the point where it could, show a UI in the canvas.
Well,
so there's a message on the top
in the upper right corner.
No, there's a message on the top of your.
Here, let me try that.
There you go.
Can you share that?
I am trying. There.
How about if I stop that and then I'll reshare it?
Got it.
There we go. So this is Lovable, already done. So it runs your code for you, right? And then this is where you hit the preview. And it's this version. So not bad.
Wow, it actually already has the pothole on 5th Street in there. That's amazing. It didn't even need to have users. It's generating its own issues for the city.
Yeah. It knows it has a pothole and it knows there's always a broken swing somewhere in a baseball Central Park, which most people have, and then a 5th Street that most people will probably have. Lovable though, now if I rerun it, it could pop up with that. So like, oh, here's report an issue. Does it do it better? I like the report an issue. Here, same deal. Like, and it has, I've seen it build a map feature before, and that's the crazy thing. I've seen it actually build out a map, which is really interesting. So this is an 01. I wish they could do it in 01 Pro, but you have that capability now in ChatGPT. So
thanks for demonstrating that. I had no idea that you could use 01 in the same way as you can use Lovable. That's
the thing, is like, everyone comes up with this stuff, and even us, like, we don't know all the features that are all like in every single one of these things, right? Let alone the person outside the AI bubble who's like, oh, I didn't even know you could do this.
All right, Karl, I need you to stop sharing because I don't seem to be able to do that. Oh no!
And look, I think
Excellent. Thanks.
This is a great topic for another show. Honestly, Karl, I mean, I think we should all go and play and do more of this and try to create stuff. And Andy, especially with your expertise, and kind of see what you get it to create. But that to me, this is a fascinating show. So we'll put pause on that for now, and we'll bring that back probably maybe as early as next week. So it looks really cool. By the way, I will just say this could be another topic as well, that I was curious now that I had done what I did with Perplexity using R1 or O1, and I used one of my most advanced custom GPTs, slapped it in there. The results are insane.
Insane?
Yes.
So what you took a custom GPT?
I took a custom GPT.
Instructions.
Probably one of the best
instructions for a custom GPT, and
probably one of the best custom GPTs I've ever created. That helps companies. I've said these words before. It helps take what they know, which is their value propositions in sales, and align it with a persona and a job title and what those prospects. So if you're the head of IT and you work at Foot Locker, what would a head of IT be going up against specifically at Foot Locker as it relates to the company that I work for, and what the value props are? Because what I want ultimately are communication snippets, we call them, but communication abilities to speak directly to that IT. So when I write an email, that head of IT goes, it's like they know me, because I'm speaking directly to that IT's pain points at Foot Locker and saying exactly how my use cases, my value props work, and then bringing in customer success stories. So I attached a file as a knowledge document that I had already created. I ran a very long prompt and then let it go through. Perplexity did all the research, then took all that research and ran it through R1 and gave me very good responses to it. Very detailed, very highly personalized. This might be coming with O3. It might be all integrated, but this is a game changer.
By the way, Perplexity has an API, so you can build a workflow automation that takes all of that information and puts it into Perplexity. It designates R1 as the model, and that'll be the new state of the art for your GPT.
Yeah, well, I mean, so there's a company called Journey that is an offshoot of Scaled, and that's exactly what we're building in it. We use the Perplexity Sonar model, which is phenomenal. So anyway, we'll talk more about that, because there's some big implications here. Obviously, if O3 comes out, we might have more to talk about on that. Tomorrow, people are asking in the comments, they're like, what day is the Brian bot thing? It's tomorrow. So what do we mean by the Brian bot? Well, I tested a process. I use a company called SynthFlow, as well as 11 Labs, as well as some other things. And essentially what I want to do is create an AI clone of myself, voice, not avatar, not moving, but just voice, that could answer questions hypothetically on our website about past shows of the Daily AI Show. So let's say you want to know more about wearables. Me and Andy had a whole conversation about wearables. I use that as an example because it's in there. You can ask a question about wearables, but it will also go deeper into those topics using the power of AI, right? In the GPTs and stuff like that. So that's coming up tomorrow. I will do my best to do a demo. I have one more hurdle that needs to be leaped over. It's not me. I'm just in a waiting game with 11 Labs and SynthFlow and how they talk to each other. So hopefully that will all happen tomorrow and I'll be able to do a full demo. But regardless, I'm going to walk you through what I did, why I don't think it's actually a true deployable solution for this, and what we might have to do instead if somebody was to deploy this and try to use something like this. So that'll be tomorrow's conversation. Sounds like we have a lot of great conversations for next week already. So come back, hang out with us. Can I ask Florida questions? Yes, Justin, you can ask it. Sure, ask it Florida questions. We'll see how the Brian bot does with that tomorrow. You might be surprised at its answers. Does Brian bot have firefighting knowledge? It does. It does.
Of course it does.
It does, Justin. It also knows about CrossFit. Don't even think I would leave that out of a Brian bot. Don't even think. It's going to lay all your bingo card, all of it, right off the bat. Okay, we got to go. That's it. We're already at an hour. See you guys. We'll see you guys tomorrow. Bye.